These dishes came straight from smouldering hands, soot-covered faces and 12-hour shifts. They were fuel for miners, dock workers, mill hands and factory labourers who needed filling meals on a budget, but something that also tasted nice. Because of their needs, they made the best of the simplest and cheapest ingredients they could find to get through the day. Today, all of us have access to takeaway and ready-to-serve meals, but sometimes these classics find their way back on the table for a little taste of the past. They're not just recipes, they're also stories and reminders of a time when food had to work as hard as the people who ate it. And if you want to know more about Britain in the old days, make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Without further ado, let's begin. Coronation Chicken was first served in 1953 to celebrate Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, and after that, it soon became pretty popular in everyday kitchens because it was relatively cheaper to make. The dish was made using cold-cooked chicken mixed with a creamy mayonnaise, and curry powder dressing sometimes with sweet apricots or sultanas. For working families, it was a great way to use up any leftover roast chicken and freshen it up. Anyone who was there at the time definitely has memories of this dish, and even the street parties, bunting and neighbours gathering to share food and celebrate together. Tuna Noodle Casserole started as an American post-war budget meal, but soon made its way into British homes too during the 60s and 70s. It was clearly thrifty cooking at its finest, since the ingredients were just tinned tuna, cooked pasta, a tin of condensed mushroom soup, and maybe a handful of peas that were all baked together with a crunchy breadcrumb. It was a neat way for working-class households to feed the whole family without going broke. The aroma of it baking in the oven was homely and comforting, and children loved the creamy, slightly salty flavour. In a time before convenience-ready meals, this casserole was a form of home comfort. Those in the military probably remember this as the SOS, but the creamed chipped beef on toast was a creamy and savoury breakfast that also appeared on British tables after the war. The dish was made from dried beef slices in a rich white sauce which was had with toast, and it really made the most of what was available in ration-conscious years. For working men, it was a quick but hearty start to the day, giving enough fuel for long shifts in factories, mines or on the docks. While it might not appear much in modern kitchens for older generations, it's a reminder of post-war ingenuity, which made something really delicious from limited and humble ingredients. Few dishes bring back memories of school dinners quite like rice pudding. It was a sweet and creamy dessert that was made from pudding rice, milk, sugar, and a sprinkle of nutmeg or cinnamon, and slowly baked until it became thick. It could be eaten both warm and cooled, so it was a really nice budget-friendly treat. Many remember scraping the golden skin from the top of the pudding dish, a prized part of the dessert. It was a taste of home, whether eaten at the family table or in a drafty school hall, and it remains a nostalgic reminder that the simplest ingredients often make the fondest memories. The Sunday roast was like a weekly tradition in many British homes, and the Yorkshire pudding accompanied it. The roast itself was roast beef, lamb or chicken, served with crispy roast potatoes and seasonal vegetables with a rich gravy. But the pudding itself was had before the roast, since it was a way of filling up stomachs before the more expensive main course. Yorkshire puddings were baked beneath the roast to catch the dripping fat, becoming crisp on the outside and fluffy inside. For working families, Sunday was often the only day when everyone sat down together for a hearty, unhurried meal. The smell of roasting meat wafting through the house still evokes memories of family gatherings, laughter, and the comforting sense that for at least one afternoon life slowed down. Now, steak and kidney pie is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a nice and savoury pie which is filled with diced beef, kidney and onion. Pies were traditionally made to keep the stuff inside them fresh, since they acted as a sort of preservation method in a time when refrigeration wasn't invented. So these pies used to keep, and the steak and kidney pie was on the cheaper side for the working class, and often seen in the households. Welsh Rarebit, sometimes mistakenly called Welsh Rabbit, is a pretty simple dish. It's made with thick slices of bread topped with a savoury cheese sauce, with either mustard, ale, or Worcestershire sauce before being grilled. Its origins go back centuries with roots in Welsh taverns where cheese was a staple, but in Britain it was an inexpensive and satisfying meal for workers, especially if they could get a pint with it. The rich, tangy flavour of the cheese topping was comforting in the cold winter months, and it could turn even stale bread into something special. Traditionally, shepherd's pie used leftover lamb, while cottage pie featured beef, and both were minced and cooked with onions, carrots and gravy, and then topped with creamy mashed potatoes and baked until golden. For working class families, it was the ultimate way to stretch Sunday's roast into a hearty Monday meal. Every household had its own twist, like how some added peas, while others sprinkled some cheese on top. The smell of it baking filled kitchens with warmth, and the first spoonful broke through the golden crust to reveal rich, savoury filling beneath. These pies weren't just meals. They were a way of making sure nothing went to waste, turning scraps into something that felt like pure comfort. The Cornish pasty is a perfect example of food designed for hard work. Originating in Cornwall, it was the staple lunch for miners, fishermen and farm labourers. The D-shaped pastry, thickly crimped along one edge, encased a filling of beef, potatoes, swede and onion, cooked slowly within its pastry shell. The crimp acted as a handle for coal-dusted hands, to be discarded after eating. Some even had sweet fillings at one end for a built-in dessert, and its sturdy design kept the food warm for hours, so it was really convenient for workers who lived far from home. Today, the Cornish pasty is still a beloved street food, but for many it carries the taste of heritage, fuel for both the body and the pride of a working tradition. Pork pie, with its hot water crust and seasoned pork filling, is one of Britain's most iconic portable foods. Originating as a way to preserve meat before refrigeration, the pie was filled with tender pork and topped with a savoury jelly made from boiling bones. For factory and farm workers, it was the perfect meal to pack in a tin or wrap in paper, staying fresh throughout the day. Eaten cold, it was hearty enough to keep hunger at bay until evening. In market towns, pork pies were a proud local specialty, often sold from butchers' windows alongside pickles or chutneys. Though now often associated with picnics or festive buffets, for the working man it was once an everyday lunch. Jam Roly-Poly is the pudding of childhood for many in Britain, since it was one of the most convenient and cheap sweets available. It was basically a sweat pastry rolled around sweet jam, steamed or baked until it became soft. In post-war homes, it was a way to create a filling dessert with simple, inexpensive ingredients, and was sometimes served with custard or cream. Sometimes nicknamed school dinner pudding, it was a reward for children of working-class families after they had endured grey mince or boiled cabbage. Even today, one bite can take people back to warm kitchens, steamed-up windows, and the sound of a spoon scraping the last bit of custard from the bowl. Faggots were made from minced offal like liver and heart, since workers could easily get those, especially because of all the rationing during the time. They were nice and seasoned with herbs and mixed with caul fat before they were baked and served with potatoes and peas. The dish was real popular in the Midlands and South Wales, where faggots were both affordable and provided protein at a fraction of the cost of prime cuts. Their rich, earthy flavour was beloved by many, but it's much less common today. For older generations, the dish recalls bustling butcher's shops, enamel plates piled high and steaming mugs of tea. Boiled beef and carrots was once a working-class staple, and it's even celebrated in old Cockney songs. Cheap cuts of beef were simmered slowly with onions, carrots, and sometimes cabbage until the meat was nice and tender. It was easy to make since you just threw everything together and waited for a while. For dock workers, builders, and factory hands, it was a dinner that restored strength after long hours of labour. The sweetness of the carrots balanced the savoury meat, and the broth often doubled as the base for next day's soup. It wasn't a glamorous dish, but it was really filling. The Bedfordshire Clanger is a sweet pastry roll traditionally filled with either meat or with jam if it's for a sweeter dessert. Popular among agricultural workers, it could be carried into the fields and eaten cold or warmed by a fire. Beef and vegetables might fill the savoury part, while jam or stewed fruits sweetened the dessert king. The sturdy sweet pastry kept everything intact during long days outdoors. This meal reflected a time when practicality ruled the kitchen and every bite had to count. Though now a regional specialty, the Clanger remains a reminder of clever, thrifty cooking designed for life on the go. The Ploughman's lunch sounds like it was a meal from the countryside, and it actually was too. It was made with thick slices of crusty bread, cheese, pickled onions, and sometimes a wedge of pork pie. Its name makes you think of farmers taking a midday break and sitting on a fence post with simple food that could be carried easily into the fields. Its popularity grew in the 1950s and 60s since it was promoted by pubs as a quick lunch, but it was actually tied to rural work from even farther back. The combination of tangy pickles, hearty bread and rich cheese was both satisfying and sustaining, and was perfect for those who needed fuel for the rest of the day. Bubble and Squeak was named after the sound made when cooking the dish. It was basically just leftover potatoes and cabbage with any other veggies all meshed together and fried until they became crispy. For working class families in the post-war years, it was unthinkable to waste food, so leftovers were always reused in some way, and that's how Bubble and Squeak was born. The browned, crunchy edges were the best part, and it really reminds you of a simpler and sometimes tougher time. A Scottish staple, Mince and Tatties, is as straightforward as its name suggests. It's basically minced beef cooked with onions and carrots in a rich gravy and served with boiled or mashed potatoes. It was a weeknight mainstay in many working-class homes, affordable and easy to prepare in large quantities. The soft, savoury mince paired perfectly with the buttery tatties, making it ideal for cold evenings. Even today, it's still served in homes and cafes across Scotland, making it a quiet testament to the enduring appeal of honest, no-frills cooking. Bangers and mash is a pub classic with working-class roots. The dish has nice and juicy sausages with creamy mashed potatoes on the side, and everything came with a rich onion gravy. The term bangers dates back to wartime when meat shortages meant sausages were bulked out with water, which also made them pop loudly when they were cooked. The buttery mash really soaked up the gravy, and the sausages were a nice bit of protein. Whether eaten in a bustling pub or at a small kitchen table, it was comfort food through and through. Few dishes are as simple as the chip butty, thick-cut chips stuffed into buttered white bread, often with a splash of vinegar or a squirt of ketchup. It was the epitome of quick, cheap comfort food. Found in fish and chip shops and cafes across Britain, it was a popular lunch for workers looking for something hot and filling without breaking the bank. The combination of soft bread, melting butter, and hot salty chips was pure indulgence, even if it wasn't the healthiest choice. For many, it brings back memories of seaside holidays, after-school snacks, or grabbing a quick bite before the next shift. It's proof that even the simplest ingredients can create a treat worth remembering. Lancashire Hotpot is a slow-cooked stew that became the pride of industrial Lancashire. Traditionally made with mutton or lamb, onions and sliced potatoes layered on top, it was baked gently for hours until the meat was tender and the potatoes golden. For cotton mill workers, it was a practical dish which was prepared in the morning and left to cook while they were at work, ready to eat when they came back home. Its rich aroma would fill the home, a welcome comfort on cold northern evenings. Sometimes kidney or carrots were added depending on what was available. This hearty, no-nonsense dish is a perfect example of working-class ingenuity. And that's it for today's trip down memory lane. Give it a like if it brought back the flavour of the past, and don't forget to subscribe for more delicious nostalgia. See you next time.